Welcome back to VGK Photography. We're going to look at the two new 3-axis gimbals from DJI. One is the RS3 Combo and the other one is RS3 Pro Combo. Both are combo boxes. I don't know why there is a picture on this box and not a picture on this box. So anyway, let's get these things unboxed first. Now let's see what we get inside the RS3 Pro Combo. Many familiar accessories from the RS3, but we get a few more here. Balancing the gimbals is the same as any other gimbal, nothing different or fancy here. Let's look at the RS3 first. This is the successor to the RS2C gimbal. Yes, you heard me right. The compact version will be the RS3 and the bigger version will be the RS3 Pro now. First thing we noticed is how lightweight the entire combo pack was. Still, the gimbal is well built like the previous RS2 body. The RS3 can take a payload of 3 kilos. I think many mirrorless bodies with 1.4 or 1.8 prime lenses will be covered under this weight range. We now have a physical switch to toggle between the modes. We can change to PTF, PF or FPV without having to change from the menu. We get to charge the battery separately. We don't have to keep the gimbal head attached to the battery grip even while charging. This could mean we could get additional spare batteries as well. I don't think that is even required as the battery performance in the RS3 is stunning. We used the gimbal balanced with the R6 and the 35mm lens for about 4 hours after fully charging the battery, and the battery was still showing full. The RS3 and the RS3 Pro can lock and unlock automatically. This was a great surprise to us. Wish we had recorded our first reaction to it. The gimbal automatically goes to the closing position when turned off and comes back to the balanced and ready to use position when turned on. This will literally save a lot of time during the shoot, and since we don't have a hard case with cutout interiors, we don't have to worry about the gimbal fitting in a balanced position. We can just place it in the pouch and we will still have a properly balanced gimbal. Thankfully, we can now connect and control our cameras using Bluetooth and not worry about cables. Usually, I forget to carry the right cable or lose my patience searching for the right cable in the mix of all other cables. This Bluetooth connectivity is brilliant and works like a charm. We now have a 1.8-inch OLED display with a touch screen. The content looks crystal clear. The menu system has been worked upon as well. A little bit of learning curve here. The gimbal is certainly much more stable than the previous generation. I can easily sense it from the footage. Not going to talk much, you be the judge of the output. The RS3 can now switch between normal and briefcase modes seamlessly. Some call it the underslung mode. This was one of the major complaints with the RS2C gimbal. We had a separate knob to loose before we can take it to the underslung mode. Now that problem is solved. The RS3 is ready to use in a normal position and in the underslung position anytime without having to fiddle around with any knobs. Yes, we see a little bit of vertical movements during heavy walking. This is quite common for any gimbal, and that is the reason DJI introduced the 4D to eliminate the 4-axis movement. In my opinion, The vertical movement is not all that bad. It adds a little bit of organic look and it feels like we are following the subject by walking or running with him. Otherwise, the footage will be too smooth, like it was shot with a drone. I mean, there are situations that demand that level of smoothness, and there are other tools to achieve that as well. The most commonly used gimbal shot is the parallax. If the stability of the gimbal is not good, sometimes the gimbal would fight against the parallax movement. However, check this out. I mean, the RS3 just handles it with so much grace and ease. The RS3 is so lightweight it can be used for vlogging purposes too. Holding it even at an arm's length is fairly easy. Of course we would get tired, but it would take a little bit longer than usual. We can use the focus motor to control the manual focus lenses with the front dial. The front dial can be assigned to a plethora of functionalities, but the focus motor is the default of them. We can set the start and ending positions in the lens and have them calibrated. The arms are made of carbon fiber and definitely feels light for a gimbal of this size. We get the automated locks here as well, and it is super useful in run and gun situations between different locations. We have a new optimized stabilization algorithm which we will test in a minute. The RS3 Pro can take a load of 4.5 kilos. The gimbal is compatible with the 4D grade LiDAR focusing technology from the Ronin RT. We can use the gimbal with the same high bright monitor as the Ronin 4D, which we unfortunately don't have right now. It can be used for remote gimbal control, focus control and whatnot. For the RS3 Pro, we wanted to push it a little further. We balanced a professional 70-200 2.8 lens with a mirrorless body and took it for a ride. Gone are those days where the gimbal were used only with wide-angle prime lenses to compensate for the weight payload. The output was a pleasant surprise. The footage looks beautifully stable even at 200mm. And here are a few more samples showing the stability of the Pro gimbal. LiDAR is light detection and ranging, which basically reads the reflection of the infrared light emitted from the module and calculates the distance to the subject. The LiDAR module has its own camera and has its own face tracking and subject tracking, single point focus, and all of these parameters can be adjusted from the gimbal display. So even if you don't have a camera with a reliable continuous autofocus for video, this LiDAR can help you big time. Lens calibration is a must, and the lenses with hard stops are the best choice. Cine lenses, fully mechanical manual focus lenses, vintage lenses will pair great. We can calibrate up to 3 lenses and store their profiles. The autofocus works really well, however there is one thing to keep in mind. There is a parallax between the LiDAR lens and the actual camera lens. The closer the subject is, the greater the parallax will be. If the subject is too close that it is only visible to the camera lens and not to the LiDAR, the autofocus may not be reliable. In my opinion, subjects that close are better focused manually than rely on any autofocus system. I mean, that's how I usually work. When the subject is, say, 3 or more feet away, the autofocus engages and works way better than the previous 3D LiDAR focus module. Just don't take the subject to the edge of the frame, center part is good. Like the previous versions, the DJI Ronin app can connect to these gimbals and we can use the Force Mobile feature as well. Overall, the RS3 gimbal turns out to be highly recommended for shoots that require a lot of stamina and a lighter profile. Most importantly, wedding scenarios where we tend to use the gimbal for hours together. And yes, the battery life alone is a great selling point for wedding situations. Charge the gimbal fully the previous day and that is one less thing to worry about during the shoot. This is great for travel, small scale music videos, and highly recommended for weddings. Coming to the RS3 Pro, this gimbal is aimed at a more professional and complex shoot situations where the gimbal has to be sturdy enough to take heavier payloads and also offer excellent stabilization. It is a flagship 3-axis gimbal from DJI and it delivers a lot indeed. The video transmission, remote monitoring, focus controls, anti-interference technologies make this gimbal a bridge to the top-end Ronin 4D. This looks more like an ecosystem expansion platform than just a stabilizer. I'm super stoked by how great the stability of the gimbal is for my purposes. At the end of the day, it is hard to recommend one over the other. It all boils down to the shoots that you are in. Weddings, smaller events, travel, family time shoots, etc. can be benefited from the RS3. At the same time, don't get me wrong, RS3 Pro is awesome for weddings too, especially if you are using 1.4 or 1.2 lenses, which tend to be much heavier than the usual. The RS3 Pro can be a fantastic choice for short films that involve a lot of action sequences, where mounting the gimbal on various objects such as vehicles, RC cars, sliders and jibs are a must. I hope this video was of some use to you. I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, bye bye.